We are getting extra cozy today. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Talktober. Today we are going to be doing another Tuesday card reading or a timeless card reading, depending on when you're watching this. The whole point, and I think I've disclaimed each card reading so far this way, so I'll just keep doing it in case this is the first one you stumble on. But to me, the whole point of using something like an oracle deck or a tarot deck or anything of that nature is that it's really just a tool to better understand what's going on in your subconscious. And I think that the deeper we get to know our subconscious, the deeper we get to know ourselves more intimately and understand what's going on and how those things bubble up to the surface, the better that we're able to move about our lives with more grace and more understanding, not only for ourselves, but also for other people. Today's deck is the Healing Mantra deck. This is by Matt Kahn or Kahn, K-A-H-N, and the artwork is by Joe Klima, and this deck is beautiful. I love relying on this deck whenever I catch myself feeling more anxious or just in my feels a little bit, because it gives such great, just to the point advice, but in a way that it feels like an affirmation and not in the corny, like I'm going to walk around for the rest of my day, like affirming a word to myself, but more so in a hit home message that you can just walk away from with one line or one word, or you can open up the deck and obviously dive deeper into it. The other thing I really like about this deck is the color range of it. I just think it's a beautiful deck. So that's what I'm going to be reading from today. It's a 52 card deck. And without further ado, let's dive in. Today I am drinking a salted caramel half-calf latte that I just made myself because it is about 3 p.m. when I'm recording this right now, and I am in need of a 3 p.m. pick-me-up, let me tell you. Let me start shuffling and jump into this reading. Okay, so before we dive in, I'm going to do something a little different with this reading. I want you to pick a number between 1 and 3. Okay, pick 1, 2, or 3. Again, take this reading however you like. You can go with the number you chose and the card that comes up with it, or you can take the reading as a whole, or you can do both. You can listen to the number that you chose and the card that correlates to it, and then take the whole reading at large too, and just again, this is really just like what resonates with your subconscious, what comes up for you as you listen to this, and what doesn't resonate, leave that stuff behind. So 3 cards, and another layer to this chat is I'm gonna do a conjoined card with each one. So we'll dive deeper with each card. So for those of you that picked card 1, or if you're just listening for the full general reading, the first card is Sharing Shame. This is a really beautiful blue card. It's kind of got like a mountain. It looks like a mountain with some water. That's the vision I get from the artwork. And it says, when I share my deepest pain, I give myself permission to be. To me, immediately when I read this card, I can feel it in my gut right now in experiencing that pressure all of the time, whether you have a lot on your plate or maybe you are having really high expectations of yourself, or you're just catching yourself feeling off or down or shameful or feeling any kind of pain in any way. I think it becomes really easy to harbor that pain in and lock it down, or only feel it within yourself, or maybe not even feel it within yourself at all. So when it comes to sharing shame, I think that really beautifully opens up a tunnel of connection where we can all realize how human it is to feel shame, how human it is to feel pain, how human it is to deal with some of the heavier days in life, and how it just, again, it balances so beautifully with the third card. It's just as valid to share our pain as it is to share our joy. And there is no shame in sharing our pain or admitting when we feel pain or admitting when we're having a hard time. And so I don't know who needs to hear that message, but if you picked card 1, perhaps it was you. Another way to read this could be past, present, future, or you, the other person, and an overall situation. So the second card, for those of you that picked card number 2, it is Awakening Inspired Action. This card is really beautiful too. Again, lots of greens. So to me, I immediately think of the heart chakra, and there's lots of little sparkles. Like, it just feels like an openness with this card. That's what I get from it. And the back quote says, there is only what life is asking of me. And again, this is what I mean when I say that this deck is just, it's just so to the point with exactly what you need to hear when you need to hear it. So there is only what life is asking of you. That is the inspired action to take, and that is where you can awaken. Like, if you feel uncertain or unsure Another card in this deck that I really love, and I hope it comes up later in the reading, but maybe if it doesn't, let's just pull from it there too. It's in any given moment, I always know what to do. And I feel like that correlates really well with this card too. There is only what life is asking of me. And so just take what life is asking of you and don't feel like you need to take on more. What is happening in your life or what you are being called to do is your duty, and there is a way to find inspiration in it. And even if it doesn't feel inspiring or motivating, there is definitely inspired action on the other side of taking charge of whatever that thing is. Both of these cards were also directed upwards, and if you listened to the earlier card readings, I do this thing where if a card is facing up, I intuitively read it as external, and if it's flipped upside down, as internal. So both sharing shame and awakening inspired action are external. So it gives a lot of openness, both of these cards together, like taking your pain and then finding inspiration in it to persevere. Whereas the third card, and for those of you that picked number 3, this is your highlighted message, even though the whole reading can be taken for everybody. This is the only card flipped upside down. So this is internal, and it says receiving elation. This card, again, very beautiful. I get lots of light from it, and the reading on the back says, I am born of infinite joy. Immediately, this makes me think of how we all really come back to the original source, and the original source is light. And we are all born of that light. We are all born from that infinite, boundless energy that cannot be created and cannot be destroyed. We all have it within us. It's just that as life layers on top of itself, with the older we grow and the more complex it becomes, and we could dive into even just multiple dimensions of it, so on and so forth, it can almost feel like a labyrinth where it becomes, or like a house of mirrors, where it becomes more and more difficult to really find our way back to that original source, that simplicity, that energy, that joy that we all originate from. And I think especially too, if we are feeling any kind of shame or any kind of pain, then it becomes even more so. This card being the third card in the reading, and if I were to read this like a story, it's like opening up into the places that you might be feeling pain and feeling full ownership and full grace in it instead of shame, taking inspired action, and then remembering that you have boundless joy, boundless energy within you, and that could either be the result or the answer to the question. And again, depending on what card you picked, could be where you're at in this story or in this reading, or it just could be the message that you need to hear today, which I would love to know if it was. Now, like I mentioned, I'm going to do a counter message for each of these cards. So again, stick with what number you picked. This is going to be what a counter message is. Again, to me, is just like if I want to go further into a certain situation or a certain card that comes up for me, I'll just flip another card on top of it, almost like a cross. So almost like the next layer to that question, or the thing that may be blocking it or getting in the way, or the following step. Wow, okay. So card number 1, the card that came across it is dissolving judgment. Just looking at it, all I see is lifting. I don't know if that makes sense, but all I see is just a lightness to it. It's almost like pulling the pressure off of you, pulling the weight off of you, which goes so nicely with the sharing shame and your deepest pain. And the back of it says, I don't have to like the actions of others in order to love my journey. Wow, this feels like such a breath of fresh air. Like these two cards together, sharing your shame, and then also knowing that any reaction you get to either sharing your shame or owning your pain, or even just maybe it's whoever's causing the pain in your life, whatever it is, like you don't have to love the actions of other people in order to love your own journey, or even if we can go deeper with it, in order to love yourself. Card number 2, which was awakening inspired action, the cross card was illuminating the truth, which again, feels so nicely paired with this card. And immediately when I look at this card, I see the moon, even though I know that's not the moon. But what that makes me think of, what pulls up from my subconscious, is this idea that with illuminating the truth and seeing something like the moon, I immediately think of intuition. And perhaps there's a truth that's being called to you from your intuition that you might be ignoring, and you need to illuminate it. You need to listen to your intuition. You need to listen to what your gut feeling has been telling you. The back says, I am willing to see things clearly, no matter the outcome. And that, with this card, there's only what life is asking of me. It's like, see your life clearly, feel what is being called of you, and don't get too hung up on the outcome or what's going to be on the other side of that inspired action, and instead try and find joy in the journey, try and find joy in the truth of your life, in the truth of your intuition too. There's a lot, like, I don't know why, but I immediately just keep on getting this message of like listening to your intuition, especially in order to find that inspired action. And then the card that came across, the receiving elation, which was the inward card, it is dispelling sadness. And this card looks like a warm cup of tea to me. And the fact that it crossed over internal joy, or being born of infinite joy, the back says, I will feel better once I get the rest I need. This to me reads like the way back to that infinite joy, the way back to the parts of yourself that you might not feel currently connected to, or missing that infinite joy within yourself, or the things that you love about life. Like if you're finding it hard to connect to those things, you're gonna feel better when you get the rest you need. What rest might look like could actually be sleep. It could be a cup of tea. It could be a cup of soup with a friend. It could be so many things, but to dispel the sadness is how you'll get back to your infinite joy. Not that both of these things can't coexist, but more so that if you can rest, perhaps you can lift the sadness in order to find an easier path back to your infinite joy. And so that's my card reading for the day. That was a good one. I'm sure you can get now from reading a few of the cards what I mean by, like, this is perfectly named the healing mantra. This is a very healing deck. Now this deck does also have a guidebook as per usual. I won't get too deep into the guidebook because this is already a long card reading today, but the guidebook does have just little blurbs that go a bit deeper into each message because the card is quite bare on its own. The nice thing is too that it's in alphabetical order, so it's really easy to find the card. And with each card, it gives a mantra as well. It says, for sharing shame, when shame is shared, cycles of victimhood are permitted to heal as you find the courage to speak your truth. Since abuse and neglect can only be perpetuated in silence, it is your willingness to step forward and share your life story that helps transform each wound and inspire others to be set free. Once your shame is shared, you are able to honor yourself with the heightened encouragement, worthiness, and validation that you deserve to receive. So the sharing shame mantra is ideal for revisiting past traumas, expressing your inner child, and finding self-acceptance. With dissolving judgments, crossing it, that mantra is ideal for learning to speak your truth, cultivating empathy, and trusting the universe. Again, perfectly paired cards. Awakening inspired action. It says, there's a blurb again that I'm not reading out, so there is more to it. I just don't want this to be super long. Basically just says that you're open, willing to participate in your soul's journey, you're ready, you're willing, you're able to face any feeling or make any necessary change. And the mantra is ideal for overcoming self-sabotage, resolving boredom, and increasing fulfillment, with illuminating the truth, crossing it, which basically just says you are no longer willing to settle for opinions, but instead yearn for a direct reflection that can shift fear and apprehension into higher vibrations of acceptance. It goes a little further, but the mantra is ideal for recovering from betrayal, healing abandonment, and dealing with distrust. The receiving elevation. When elation is received, joy becomes your natural state of being. You're aligned with the ecstatic nature of the universe to live each moment with renewed passion and purpose. This mantra is ideal for increasing the flow of creative inspiration, elevating the immune system, and being more present and dispelling sadness. When sadness dissolves, you are able to acknowledge upheavals of emotion as profound healings taking place. As a result, you are inspired to give your body the rest and rejuvenation that it needs, rather than to punish yourself into states of imbalance. Wow, that is powerful. I'm going to read that one more time. As a result, you are inspired to give your body the rest and rejuvenation it needs, rather than punish yourself into states of imbalance. And the mantra is ideal for dealing with depression, fighting against time, and learning how to relax. Every time any of those cards hit home, the sun just beamed right through the window, which again, just using that as a tool. I'm not saying that there actually is some sort of reason for it, but it does feel symbolically, metaphorically beautiful. And immediately I just feel lighter and more hopeful. So that is the card reading of the day. I hope you guys enjoyed. I would love to hear your interpretation of the cards or the reading, or if you, again, want to use these Tuesdays to do your own card reading and share your cards in the comments. I would love to hear it, and I would love to read it. And without further ado, I will chat with you guys all tomorrow in the next Talktober video. Bye, everyone.